Thank you so much, sir, for this invite. Grateful to be on this session with you and for the kind words. I'll be touching on the off-label use of drugs in posterior segment disorders. The anterior part has been covered very well by Shyam Sundar. Now we'll go to the other aspect of ophthalmology, the posterior segment diseases, which we tackle on a daily basis. Now, invasion into this posterior segment began around the time when man went into space. And historically, they were successfully cured endophthalmitis in rabbits as way back as 1944. And basically, this is a method that surgeons have used over the years to bypass the blood-brain barrier. So the issue basically is whether it is safe or not. Now, the common indications that we know for posterior segment disorders, these are the day-to-day issues that come up in front of us. Commonest is endophthalmitis. ARMD is a big issue now. CNVM secondary to multiple retinal disorders, macular edema, retinal vein occlusions, uveitis, and CSCR. These are the commonest indications that one would think of. Now, intravitreal injections is a rapidly evolving route of medication. If you go back into historical data, 2014-15 has seen almost a 215% increase over a 5-year period. This figure would have obviously gone up further in the last 5 years. Commonly used drugs that we have in the posterior segment are antibiotics, antifungals, antivirals, steroids. And if you look broadly, commonly used are anti-VEGFs. Aflibercept is one of the most commonly used drugs now. Even methotrexate is being used now. So the list goes on and on. Almost all the drugs that are available for use, either systemically or in the anterior segment, are also used at some point or the other in the posterior segment. Now, the off-label drug use. Quite a few of our treatments are not FDA approved, as brought out by the earlier speakers, but in this, especially in posterior segment disorders and even anterior segment, they are site-saving. So what matters is the risk and benefit and how well the treatment has been adapted and what evidence is there to promote its use as an off-label drug. The commonest that we think of is the intravitreal antimicrobials. These are the most commonly used drugs in endophthalmitis. None of these are approved by FDA for this indication. However, one injection can be site-saving. And these are safe to inject and their use is never questioned. In fact, not using them in such a scenario will often lead to litigation or questions on the treatment which we have provided to the patient. Intravitreal steroids, injection dexamethasone. This is FDA approved to reduce inflammation, uveitis as an adjunct to treatment of endophthalmitis. However, it is only approved for macular edema and retinal vein occlusions, non-infectious posterior uveitis, and diabetic macular edema. Any other use apart from this constitutes off-label use. Another common drug that we are using, intravitreal triamcinolone. It has preservatives, so there are issues with its use, but it is cheap and effective compared with the Ozurdex cost. Problems are IOP rise and endophthalmitis. This is again an off-label use, and it is not FDA approved for any posterior segment indications. Coming to photodynamic therapy, PDT, I think this will be covered by Colonel Vikas Ambia also, so I'll skip over this. I think this will form part of the posterior segment procedures. NSAIDs are FDA approved for pain and inflammation associated with cataract surgery. This is the FDA approved. Off-label use constitutes post-op CME, macular edema and diabetic retinopathy, retinal vein occlusions, uveitis, CNVM and ERM. And we as ophthalmic surgeons, almost on a daily basis, we are prone to and always using these drugs for posterior segment indications. However, we must be aware that these are not FDA approved, but the use is obviously increasing because of their proven efficacy and clinical evidence provided by various papers which have come up. Now, in uveitis, CME is a sight-threatening condition. Steroids, oral intravitreal injection, extended release devices are FDA approved. We use NSAIDs, IVTA, anti-VEGFs, anti-TNF alpha, intravitreal methotrexate, sirolimus. These are all not FDA approved, but because based on the clinical evidence, there has been growing use of these drugs for uveitis. CSCR is a recurrent condition, affects young working class. I have included this because it's a very common condition which we see almost on a daily basis. Here, however, the difference is that most of the drugs are administered orally. There is no direct injection or available with these drugs, but off-label, what we are using commonly these days are eplerenone and spironolactone. There are a number of studies which have now come up proving the efficacy of eplerenone in CSCR, and its usage is becoming more common over the day. Now, coming to anti-VEGFs, which form one of the most important drugs in the armamentarium of a posterior segment surgeon. These have revolutionized the management of ARMD. What started earlier with bevacizumab, one of the most commonly used drugs over the last 2 decades. Then we had Macugen, which was FDA approved for CNVM. However, its use in diabetic macular edema is an off-label use. Ranibizumab and aflibercept are the newer additions and which have been used now almost for ARMD and CNVM regularly. Coming to Avastin, it is one of the most closely watched drugs because of the various controversies associated with over the last few years. Ophthalmologists are both enthused to have it in their armamentarium and also concerned because of the issues with its usage. The indications for Avastin that we have seen over the years are ARMD, macular edema due to venous occlusions, myopic choroidal neovascularization, sickle cell retinopathy, diabetic macular edema, neovascular glaucoma, ROP. The list goes on and on. And these are all off-label uses of Avastin. The benefits are higher efficacy, longer half-life. There are no preservatives. It has a higher safety dose. The cost is obviously much lower than the other drugs which are FDA approved, and the wide availability. But it also has a number of adverse reactions as listed out here. I won't go into all the details, but there are a number of adverse reactions also associated with Avastin. Now, if you come to the costing part, Avastin costs less than 5,000. Now it is obviously much cheaper. Lucentis has now come down to 18,000 per injection, and aflibercept is still in the 55 to 60,000 range. So the cost variation obviously is huge for the treating surgeon, and this becomes important in a setting of a country like India, where costly medical care is often out of reach of 90% of our population. But the industry has various concerns. They obviously project that it is not very safe to use Avastin in lieu of Lucentis or aflibercept. And is this financially motivated? That issue will always remain. That debate will always be an ongoing one. However, what is important to note is World Health Organization has now added Avastin to its model list of essential medicines. Now, there are a number of intravitreal combinations also that we use on a daily basis: antibiotics, antibiotics plus steroids, anti-VEGF plus steroids. These are all not FDA approved, the combinations. Individually, they might be approved, but combination therapy is not approved. There are problems with combinations, incompatibility with each other, the instability of the molecule, which is still not, the reactions between the molecules is not proven, retinal toxicity when two drugs are given together, and the procedure-related issues. Intraocular risks, again with combination drugs, endophthalmitis, the risk goes up with multiple injection, retinal detachment, and traumatic cataract. These persist with all intravitreal drug uses and injections. Now, coming to some other drugs which are also available for posterior segment use. Of the antiviral implants, only ganciclovir is Viracert by Bausch and Lomb, which is FDA approved for usage. The others like Foscarnet and Cidofovir are still not FDA approved for posterior segment usage. Now we have come up with stem cell therapy. Stem cell therapy has a number of indications for repair, restore, and regeneration of dysfunctional cells. There are issues with long-term safety, graft survival, biological activity. Indications are ARMD, glaucoma, RP, Stargardt's disease. A number of studies are ongoing to prove their efficacy, but none of these are as of now FDA approved, but we get case reports off and on of their usage and various success stories associated with stem cell usage. So to conclude, off-label use is something which we have to deal with on a daily basis. What we need to do is familiarize ourselves with published literature, guidelines, and the experience of colleagues. This is what is very important. We need to keep ourselves abreast of what is going on, what is the accepted standard of care worldwide, and always discuss all options, explain to the patients what is beneficial for him, and of course, the cost-benefit ratio for the patients, and always document. Like the previous speaker had also mentioned, informed consent for off-label use is a must. We cannot bypass such a thing. And ultimately, evidence and not label should be gold standard for the practitioners to base their judgment when making therapeutic decisions for their patients. Thank you.